better than ever. And so is the Cancer Center at Iowa Methodist.
The new John Stoddard Cancer Center at Iowa Methodist. We're in this fight together.
This is stock car racing, American stock car racing. And this is the slam bam action that made it the best attended sport in the nation. And now the best known driver in all of American racing, the legendary Richard Petty, hosts stock car racing's most talked about event, the Battle of the NASCAR Legends. Join the king as some of the greatest names in racing return to wheel-to-wheel car wrecking action in the Battle of the NASCAR Legends.
Sunday afternoon at 1 here on TV8.
Steve Oswald, TV8 News Break coming up in just a half hour. TV8's Jeff Greenwood with Senator Charles Grassley with a trip across Iowa, promising voters action on the MIA POW issue. Jill Lingwall with gas-fired inferno in Pleasant Hill today, giving firefighters a chance to tame the flames. And our Martin Augustine with a final look at the tulips in Pella. Now this.
Hey, we jumped in and took the Holiday Sports Challenge.
See you at 6.
The Los Angeles police try to explain their disarray in the face of the riots. And President Bush restates his plan for helping the inner cities. This is the CBS Evening News. And this is Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. Los Angeles Police Chief Daryl Gates stirred up a new controversy today with his remark that if he had to do it over again, he would have moved on rioters with deadly force. Several community leaders then called for Gates to resign. One state senator said, "We simply cannot afford this kind of leadership or lack thereof." Bill Lagatuda is covering the story again today and has more now from Los Angeles.
LA police raided this house today, and the man who lives here says they confiscated a videotape. This is what's on it, the most graphic ground-level pictures of the rioting in that unguarded intersection after the King verdicts. Police have been looking for any video that might help them identify gang members and others who went on that first gruesome rampage. Officers need the tape because they weren't there. Last night, the chief blamed one of his subordinates.
It was a glitch by a lieutenant pulling his forces back and then not forming them up and sending them back in.
But as Gates went on to defend the rest of his department's actions that night, it was becoming clear just how much the LAPD is in a state of disarray. Many officers who worked the riot say their leaders in the field are reluctant to use the necessary force in light of the King incident. And critics say the aggressive paramilitary department, once hailed as the most efficient in the country, has become timid and weak.
We're in trouble if we do act, we're in trouble if we don't act, and there is a lack of a direction.
And when I think about it, it scares the living daylights out of me.
Former Olympic gold medalist and track coach Al Joyner says what happened to him Friday night shows a police department with racist attitudes. Joyner says he was stopped twice in Hollywood in 5 minutes. He believes because he is black.
I was like on center stage, and I felt like a piece of meat getting ready to get slaughtered.
The police say it was a case of mistaken identity and nothing more. Meantime, as the controversial home video shows, the lightning rod for much of the city's anguish has become its embattled police chief. Even Gates' political allies are beginning to see him as harmful to the city's regrowth, and there's mounting pressure on the chief to retire early instead of in June. But Gates said again last night he'll stay on to the bitter end. Bill Lagatuda, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The trouble in Los Angeles has taken a huge toll. 53 people dead, more than 2,300 injured, $750 million in damage. With numbers like that, perhaps it is not surprising that another staggering statistic has gone virtually unnoticed. The riots put more than 40,000 people out of work. John Blackstone focused on that part of the story today. Here is his report.
When Watson's Market was burned down by looters, Daisy Johnson lost her job. That's where you check people out?
I check people groceries out.
Her boss came to give her her last paycheck. She's among some 40,000 put out of work by the flames. And the economic problems caused by the riots are spreading far away from where the anger flared.
Action.
The riots brought a hard dose of reality to a city that deals so much in fantasy.
The LA image before is kind of a life-free lifestyle. It's just a kind of a utopian existence.
The Pepsi Summer Chill Out.
Ads like this one for Pepsi meant big business for Los Angeles. Those who make commercials wonder who will buy the LA image now.
Totally shattered. It's like maybe the worst place on earth. I mean, there are a lot of allusions to Beirut.
Tourism, the second biggest industry in the region, has been battered. When the riots started, all Japanese tours were canceled, and visitors from around the world chose someplace else.
There are cancellations at hotels, a number of visitors at our major destination in the area. Universal Studios, Disneyland has suffered tremendously, of course.
The tourist industry expects to lose as much as $2 billion worth of business this year. That will mean more layoffs in a state where unemployment is already above the national average. California has lost 600,000 jobs during the recession, partly because so many businesses are choosing to move out of the state. Now more are deciding to take flight.
The earthquakes, the high rents, the floods, but since this last riot situation, we're out of here.
Lee Bolivar, who makes toys for exotic birds, runs the kind of creative small business that fueled much of California's previous economic success. For those who were still California dreaming, the anger in South Central Los Angeles was a harsh wake-up call. John Blackstone, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, the resignation of an Irish bishop shocks Catholics on both sides of the Atlantic, and New Orleans debates a possible gamble on a new casino.
Microsoft Word for Windows is so easy, it just takes one click to make your work look twice as good. Microsoft Word, the word processor for Windows.
Well, actually, we've always tried to watch what we eat. I mean, okra and garlic are, what, part of our lives.
Now we hear a lot about garlic.
Yeah.
So we take Kwai odor-free garlic tablets.
And you know, they really are odor-free.
Millions of Europeans have been taking Kwai odor-free garlic tablets for years. It's part of their daily diet. It's the best. And now it's available in this country, too.
Kwai is available at quality drugstores, health and natural food stores, and general nutrition centers. Kwai, science and nature working for you.
Aha! So that's what happened to Dad's Kraft free singles.
What free singles?
The fat-free kind. Helps Dad watch his fat and cholesterol.
Haven't seen them. Besides, we like them.
Sorry, campers, but these are different. See? Kraft free means fat-free. For Dad.
Aha!
We'll save him some. Any bread in this room?
Kraft free singles. Flavor like that without the fat.
Dan figures the time he saves using Microsoft Excel for his budgets is time well spent with others. Microsoft Excel, the spreadsheet for Windows.
In a radio address today, President Bush said his task now is to build bipartisan support for urban programs designed, he said, to transform America into the nation we have dreamed of. The question, of course, is what should those programs include? The president seems to favor new emphasis on programs he's talked about before to use tax breaks to help inner-city poor own their own homes and start up businesses. Others in Washington want more emphasis on putting people back to work. That brings us to tonight's Washington Notebook. What next in the aftermath of L.A.? As Los Angeles exploded in fiery anger, the violence and looting shook many on Capitol Hill.
This young man replied, "I don't care, I'm dead already." So here's a young man, prime of his life, says, "I'm dead already." What do we do now? I mean, this is an immediate need out there.
With reports this week showing unemployment of 15% in the inner cities, one answer seemed clear.
Jobs, 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 economic opportunity, decent wages.
We have abandoned that high school graduate who now has no place to go to get a job.
One of the few jobs programs that has survived 27 years of budget ups and mostly downs is the Job Corps. Set up in the Johnson administration, it mixes vocational training with boarding school. For participants, it has meant hope for the future.
It helped me a lot in school, stay out of trouble, and accomplish other things that I never did before.
I'm planning on going out and getting a nice job
so I can get my own apartment, take care of myself.
We either spend money on this end or we spend it on some other end. And it's much cheaper to put students in a Job Corps program and teach them a trade than it is to house them in the prison system.
The Job Corps was close to being killed during the Reagan administration, but it found an unlikely champion, a conservative Republican who got the president's ear.
Job Corps is the only program for the hardcore unemployed youth of this country that has worked, and about 60% of Job Corps youth get jobs and go on to better lives.
But this year, the Bush administration decided to overhaul jobs programs, proposed to reduce the Job Corps budget, and combine the agency with 60 other work programs. The official argument, that will make it easier for those who need help to get it at one place.
We're talking about programs that can give young people jobs and then give them training. The president's direction is let's make it happen.
Some experts remain dubious. As they see it, the riots have focused administration attention on the home front. But the test, they say, is whether the attention will wane as the riot headlines fade.
I don't see high priority being placed on this issue. That's reflected in the lack of resources. It may get more priority now in the short run. The important question is whether it stays there in the long run.
There may be some reason for that skepticism on the job front, at least. While Labor Secretary Martin has mounted an aggressive lobbying campaign for the new jobs program, it rated only passing reference from the president today in his radio address. The president, it should be added, is not alone in taking a modest approach. His probable Democratic opponent seems to be on a similar tack. We get more on that now from Eric Ingberg.
Democrats saw the riot as an opportunity to indict the president for failing the cities. But their likely nominee, Bill Clinton, rejected liberal-style big government solutions. Many of his proposals, like enterprise zones, resemble those being pushed by the Republicans.
While the president and I often sound the same themes, he never works to implement his program.
If you're making a deposit,
the centerpiece of Clinton's urban program is the creation of a system of redevelopment banks to make high-risk loans.
Most jobs are being created by small businesses, and the banks that exist in our cities today do not loan money to the people who deposit in them in those neighborhoods.
Clinton's plan would do that. It's modeled on Chicago's South Shore Bank, so successful its repayment rate is 98%. Loans from the bank have enabled small businessmen to turn decrepit apartments into modern housing.
It's like a rebirth, because before there were so many abandoned buildings. You can't find any abandoned buildings now.
Clinton is vague on how he would expand the Chicago concept to other cities. Scholars say the idea would require heavy federal underwriting, which could lead to problems like the S&L's experienced.
If you guarantee the loans to these areas without any market discipline, you're really almost guaranteed to get bad loans that go sour and another round of disappointment.
Clinton declined to back a plan by big city mayors to pump billions into the cities. He favors tax benefits for the poor only if they have jobs, and he's careful to keep his law and order credentials intact.
I want to get more help for the police in the street, but this administration has cut back on aid to put police on the streets.
By sticking to modest, business-oriented approaches to what Democrats used to call the urban crisis, Clinton is keeping his eye on where the votes are, in the suburbs mostly populated by middle-class whites. Eric Ingberg, CBS News, Washington.
Afraid swimsuit season will reflect badly on you? Then make the under 200-calorie Kellogg's Special K breakfast part of your diet plan. And get the shape that reflects the way you want to be. Kellogg's Special K. Lose that winter fat.
Your dentist told you about plaque, but you didn't listen. You need the new Braun Oral-B Plaque Remover. It removes plaque just like your dentist wants you to.
That shelf should hold now, Doc.
The Braun Oral-B Plaque Remover.
Red Lobster may have gone too far this time. A full pound of tempting shrimp overflowing your plate. Red Lobster's never offered you, so much on one plate. 10 grilled shrimp, 15 butterfly, 11 scampi. A full pound of our biggest and best shrimp for a limited time. So much shrimp with all the extras, including a doggy bag.
Red Lobster for the seafood lover in you.
Back problems put more people out of work than any other injury. So Liberty Mutual helped develop a new revolutionary monitor that will actually locate the muscle injury to help doctors prescribe the right back treatment and get the worker back to his job. All of them. At Liberty Mutual, we're facing the issues that face our customers.
I'm Charles Kuralt. Who does H. Ross Perot think he is, offering to be president this way? What's he all about? We'll find out this Sunday morning.
Americans and Russians marched together and a U.S. military band played today in Moscow's first joint celebration of Victory Day, 47th anniversary of the Nazi surrender. War veterans from both countries took part in the ceremonies. In Germany, the crippling strike by public service workers is over, but the problems for Chancellor Helmut Kohl may be just beginning. Bill McLaughlin now with more on that.
For motorists, the best part of the strike was the chance to ignore the rules. Now it's back to order and discipline as usual as Germany bounces back from its longest and costliest strike in more than 20 years. But this brisk rush back to normalcy may only be skin deep. The cost to the economy of the 11-day strike is enormous, hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's just the beginning. There's the cost to the prestige of Germany's long-serving Chancellor Helmut Kohl. By giving in to the unions after solemnly vowing to hold the line, Kohl has called into question his own political future.
If he does not change this sort of policy very fast, then it might even be the end of this government. Not at the moment, but maybe in half a year.
That may be wishful thinking, but even Kohl's allies admit his star is fading. During his 10 years in power, Chancellor Kohl has been remarkably lucky, surviving every crisis that's been thrown at him. But this time may be different. Already, IG Metall, the world's biggest and richest union, has started selective warning strikes, demanding wage increases higher than the public service workers.
Well, there is a risk now that the German economy, which has been looking a bit sluggish in the last 6-9 months, will now slide into recession.
And it's a time of rising unemployment as the country now faces increasing immigration from Eastern Europe and the Third World. Helmut Kohl may have run out of the ideas, the time, and the popularity he needs to build the new Germany. His future, at best, looks rocky. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, Frankfurt.
Devastating floods in Hong Kong killed at least 5 people and had pedestrians actually swimming for their lives in downtown streets. Tom Fenton, now in London, narrates our report.
Torrential rains turned the streets of Hong Kong into roaring rivers and left at least 5 dead. The Weather Bureau said 12.9 inches of rain fell between midnight and 5 a.m., including more than 4 inches in 1 hour. The result was devastating. Giant mudslides tore away hillsides and poured into apartment buildings. One slide buried a government drainage expert. Thousands of people were evacuated from one of Hong Kong's most expensive housing complexes.
Coming right on us!
Cars navigated through the streets as best they could. Many were swept away. People fared no better. Pedestrians held on to anything they could, including each other. Some were swept into the paths of vehicles.
Oh, no! Oh, my God, they just hit the car!
The business of Hong Kong is business, and many persevered in their attempt to get to work. This man risked his life to retrieve his briefcase. When it was over, cars were left piled up like wrecks on a scrap heap as Hong Kong began to count the cost of the worst storm in 26 years. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
Negotiators at the United Nations tonight approved the global warming treaty that is to be signed at next month's Earth Summit in Brazil. The U.S. today denied charges as it watered down the treaty. President Bush is expected to announce next week that he'll attend the summit. In Canada, the race is on to reach at least 26 trapped coal miners north of Halifax, Nova Scotia. An explosion has stranded the miners nearly 3,000 feet underground. Rescuers have not been able to contact the men. It is not known if they survived the explosion.
Point of fact. It takes the average person an average of 20 keystrokes to do an average task with their PC. Counterpoint. You can do it with just a point and click with Microsoft Windows.
An important message for patients taking Cardizem SR.
I need a refill on my Cardizem SR.
You may want to see your doctor before your next refill because there's a new Cardizem available, Cardizem CD.
What's the difference?
Cardizem CD should save you money, and it contains the same medication as Cardizem SR.
Can you give me Cardizem CD?
Only your doctor can change your prescription. Ask your doctor if new Cardizem CD is right for you.
Cardizem CD. Thanks. I'll ask my doctor.
Yeah, how far away do you think I can get in 72 hours?
I wouldn't trust my car past the city limits.
For the way you travel today more than ever, the Smart Money is on budget. Now at Budget, get a Lincoln or minivan with unlimited mileage for just $199 per week. The Smart Money is on budget.
Microsoft Excel can take any spreadsheet figure and easily turn it into a beautiful fact. All you do is point and click. Microsoft Excel, the spreadsheet for Windows.
The sudden resignation of one of Ireland's best-known bishops has caused shock and soul-searching and put an American woman and her son into the spotlight. Regina Blakely reports.
Catholics in Ireland today began grappling with a scandal that has raised charges of hypocrisy in that religious country. An American woman in Connecticut says 17 years ago, she had an affair with Bishop Eamon Casey and gave birth to a son.
I am bitter at the way he treated me many years ago. It never left me. Many people may think he is very kind in a lot of ways, but he has another side.
What's that?
Cruelty.
Annie Murphy and her 17-year-old son Peter went public with their story because after years of paying small amounts of child support, Murphy says the bishop refused to fund Peter's college education.
Basically, all the thing that I really remember him saying is like he prayed for me 2 times a day, or maybe more, I can't remember the exact number.
The tragedy is ironic in a country where the Catholic Church has led a bitter battle against birth control and abortion.
It looks as if they will not be able to comment about personal morality as easily as they have been. I mean, I think in the past they've been very, very strong.
This scandal is a reflection of an intense debate that has Catholics asking whether the vows of celibacy are out of date. In the last 20 years, more than 19,000 American priests have left the church to marry.
Celibacy is a very difficult way of life, but precisely because it is difficult, offers a great ideal and a great challenge to people, a sign of God's love and self-giving.
The affair has left the bishop's son wishing for a reconciliation, and fellow clergy in Ireland praying for a man who, despite human failings, did so much for his church.
We're both deeply distressed. It's a deep wound and a very great pain to all of us.
Bishop Casey plans on continuing his work with the poor in Latin America. Regina Blakely, CBS News, New York.
The unofficial presidential candidate Ross Perot spoke to the graduates of the University of Oklahoma Norman today. He urged them to start at the bottom, as he put it, get dirt under your fingernails. On Monday, he takes another step toward an official candidacy by filing for a place on the Texas ballot. His prospects are the subject of Bruce Morton's commentary tonight.
President Perot, according to the polls, it has a certain ring to it. He's the kind of man the voters have been saying they want. Somebody new, not a traditional politician, but a leader who'd act boldly, break the mold, do new things. The question is, just what new things? On the deficit, he says, there's $180 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal budget for a start. But waste, fraud, and abuse, like it's the real thing, is a slogan. What does it mean? Do you get at waste, fraud, and abuse by firing every second person at the Agriculture Department, or maybe over at State? That's a lot of out-of-work people. Big impact on the economy. One of the things you probably have to do is cut or cap entitlement programs, but those are popular programs. Unemployment compensation, Medicare, Social Security. Would Congress really vote to do that? And how would the voters feel? There's not much in Perot's record so far to indicate that he's particularly good at persuading, at building the kind of coalitions a political leader needs to get things done. One other point. Historically, third-party or independent candidates look a lot better in the spring than they do in November. Maverick Republican John Anderson peaked in the spring in 1980. So did George Wallace back in 1968. Even Theodore Roosevelt couldn't get elected as an independent, and he was an ex-president who looked really good on a horse. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
New Orleans weighs the odds of opening a casino when we come back.
I try to ignore my sensitive teeth, but they hurt.
Don't ignore your sensitive teeth. Sensodyne helps stop the pain that can make you stop brushing. Could lead even to tooth loss.
Thanks, Sensodyne.
Sensodyne helps stop the pain and the domino effect.
This plant is in trouble. Maybe so are you. Because what will you do? And how will you do it? With the one who guides you every step of the way. Ortho. It's our nature to help.
After examining, testing, analyzing, it's a fact. You can buy new Preparation H hydrocortisone cream with the maximum strength available without a prescription. It has a level of medicine that was prescribed by doctors for years. New Preparation H hydrocortisone cream. It's new, it's maximum strength, and it effectively relieves problem itch. New Preparation H hydrocortisone cream. Prescription strength without a prescription.
If your doctor has recommended Metamucil and you like the results, but you don't like those glasses of thick liquid, change to FiberCon. Get the same fiber action in easy-to-swallow tablets. Get doctor-recommended FiberCon.
Finally tonight, the city of New Orleans, sometimes known as the Big Easy, is a bit uneasy about a plan to transform it into a gambling mecca. Jim Stewart has our report.
Just another spring night on New Orleans Bourbon Street, where for tourists at least, the good times always roll.
They do undress here at the Bourbon Burlesque tonight.
Every year, 7 million visitors flock here, drawn by the French Quarter, the finest of fine foods, and of course, all that jazz. Soon, too, maybe, the world's largest gambling casino, if developers have their way.
And what we're trying to do is enhance what is already here, not create something that is new and different.
You want it both ways, then?
I want it both ways, and this community wants it both ways.
What this community wants is still not clear. With a lotto already in place, riverboat gambling and video poker slot machines set to start in a few months, the proposal to follow Las Vegas and Atlantic City into big-time casino gambling has split the business community into warring camps.
The casinos are designed to keep people in there gambling, so they're going to take people away from what people come here for. So I think it really would be devastating to local businesses.
The local economy is already reeling. Thousands lost their jobs and homes when the oil and gas industry hit bottom here. New industry has stayed away. Unemployment is high. When city officials look at casino gambling, they see jobs.
We see gambling as an enhancement to the development of other industries, but it is going to be the biggest boost. It'll be the biggest kickstart that we can get.
But no matter how the mayor and the people of New Orleans feel about it, the final decision over whether the Crescent City gets its casino or not rests here, with the Louisiana legislature, where rural lawmakers are determined to see that the state gets its share of the pie. And it's a pie some say may be worth about $300 million a year.
Well, the state is in just as bad a shape as New Orleans. I guess there's somewhat of a resentment that has built up and say, hey, we've done enough for New Orleans. We need to do something for the entire state of Louisiana.
A final vote to allow casino gambling in this, one of the nation's most unique cities, is expected in the next few weeks. Odds makers call it an even bet. Jim Stewart, CBS News.
Way down yonder in New Orleans.
That's the news. Tomorrow on Face the Nation, our guest will be Vice President Quayle. Connie Chung will have the news tomorrow night. I'm Bob Schieffer in New York. Good night.
The only thing more stunning than the scenery is the competition. The Bell South Classic, continuing tomorrow on CBS.
This? Yes.
Next on the TV8 News Live at 6, Iowa Senator Charles Grassley says it's time to get serious about MIA POWs. Jeff Greenwood with that story.
Firefighters train for battling natural gas explosions. Jill Lingwall takes us to the exercise. And the president of the Ukraine comes to Iowa looking for answers to ag problems.
I have an answer to one ag problem here in Iowa, and that's rain. That's in the forecast.
And in sports, we'll check out the Bulls highlights and the day in baseball.
TV8 News is next.
Baseball is finally back, and we've got it on This Week in Baseball. The good, bad, and the best from each week's baseball action. Don't miss This Week in Baseball.
This Week in Baseball, Sunday at 11:30 here on TV8.
Coming up on the next John McLaughlin Outdoors, the fishing season is well underway in the Iowa Great Lakes region. We'll be fishing the canals of Westlake Okoboji for largemouth bass.
They're getting stocky in here, aren't they?
They're gaining a little weight. We got some nice fish. Thank you, John.
And we'll be showing you a hot new lure. It's all on the next John McLaughlin Outdoors this Sunday at noon on TV8.
Thank you for watching KCCI TV8 in Des Moines. And now from TV8, Iowa's news leader, Steve Oswald, Sarah Jarvis, Steve Carling with weather, and Jeff Johnson sports. This is TV8 News, live at 6.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us. Iowa Senator Charles Grassley says he's digging up answers about unaccounted for Vietnam POWs and MIAs.
But even the senator concedes that many of our questions may never be answered. Today, Grassley canvassed the state, talking to Iowans about his recent official trip to Southeastern Asia. As TV8's Jeff Greenwood reports, he's also calling on the Pentagon to help demystify some of the unanswered questions.
Senator Grassley is spending the day answering to voters. A few weeks ago, Grassley and 4 other senators took a 10-day trip to meet with top government officials in Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. The big question is, was this just another set of meetings, or are we going to get answers? Grassley's optimistic.
If they follow up with our investigators cooperating the same way that they did with the senators involved, I think we will answer many of the questions that are unanswered about our POW MIAs in Southeast Asia.
38 of those 2,200 unaccounted for are Iowans. Through investigators in Southeast Asia and Washington, Grassley says he's trying to get to the heart of those unsolved cases. Today, he called on the Pentagon to declassify as much information as possible. He's doing that in a series of 5 briefings he's holding across the state. A Vietnam Vets Group spokesman says he's impressed by the effort.
There are things that just plain, questions that haven't been answered, that we need answered. And the fact that Senator Grassley and the committee have really taken the ball and really gone after this is something that we find very gratifying.
But is this going to answer those questions?
We think it will answer some of them.
Grassley agrees. Realistically, the senator hopes to answer 130 of what he calls discrepancy cases. We'll probably never know about a majority of Vietnam's remaining mysteries. Jeff Greenwood, TV8 News, Johnston.
The senators who took part in the Asia trip are part of the Select Committee on POW MIA Affairs. The committee plans to complete its work by January of next year.
2 Redfield women are dead after an early morning head-on crash near Waukee. The Iowa State Patrol says 31-year-old Jerry Free and 21-year-old Deanna Hubby died in that accident. It happened just after 4:30 this morning on Highway 6. Officers say the Hubby vehicle crossed the center line and collided with the Free car. The cause of that crash hasn't been determined yet.
A Des Moines couple who lost their children and mother to yesterday's fatal fire are back in Des Moines. Kathy Dolan and David Gordon returned early this morning to a home where fire killed 4-month-old Rachel Dolan, 3-year-old Zachary Dolan, and their grandmother, 56-year-old Norma Dolan. All three died of smoke inhalation. It now appears the fire started when a smoldering barbecue grill somehow spread to the house. When firefighters arrived shortly before 4 a.m. yesterday, that fire had spread and trapped 3 victims. The kids' parents were notified last night while away on vacation. Now, there has been a trust fund set up to help the Dolans with 3 funeral expenses and other needs. Donations are being handled at the Brenton Bank in Beaverdale at 2805 Beaver Avenue in Des Moines, and the zip code there, 50310. They can also be handled at other Brenton Bank locations.
Gas explosions and fires can be some of the deadliest and most difficult blazes firefighters face. Well, today, departments from Pleasant Hill and Carlisle battled some gas infernos and won. As TV8's Jill Lingwall reports, the fires are intentionally started, designed to provide specialized training for area departments.
For firefighters, putting out a natural gas fire can be a nightmare.
It's kind of like a massive torch, and it's a lot more coordination needed to bring the fire under control, to keep it back, to hold it back.
While a group moves forward in a line trying to contain the flames, someone is hosing them down to keep the burning gas from floating onto them. Once the flames are contained, one person is designated to reach in and shut off the valve to close down the gas flow. Firefighters say it's a technique that must be learned and practiced. They say this live training is invaluable.
We practice a propane type of fire, like if a tractor hit a line or that sort of thing. This is the best training that we can get. This is actual live fire training.
The group is also learning how to extinguish other gas-related fires.
Over in this area, we did some dry chemical fire extinguisher practice. Basically on that's a gas pit type of fire, and we go in with the fire extinguishers and put that one out.
Today's training program is an annual event for the Carlisle and Pleasant Hill departments. They say although it would be nice if they only had to fight controlled fires like this one, today's exercise